Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight, viewers. Welcome back to Wednesday Night Sessions. I am your host, Mitch Nobis. I sometimes forget to say that, but the regular viewers have seen me before, so you know who I am. If you don't know who I am, you probably saw my name tagged on Twitter or something anyway. So if you didn't know, now you know. Mitch Nobis. Thank you for joining us. These shows debut on Wednesday night, but we record them any given number of times. You might be watching it at lunch, at breakfast, when your kids are napping, middle of the night. Who knows? Thank you for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it. I am excited for today's recording because Ralph Jenkins is joining us. He is a writer who I like a lot. And we were just talking before we hit record. He's also kind of one of my favorite kind of writers. Guy with no book out yet, guy trying to fit the writing in alongside the day job. Checks a lot of boxes on like writers that I dig, so excited that Ralph can join us today. Oh, and I forgot, former Detroiter. So it's another big checkbox for our show. We love to get the former Michiganders, especially Metro Detroit folks, on our show. So Ralph, I'm going to throw it over to you. Thanks for joining us today and looking forward to your reading.
Thanks again for having me, Mitchell. I appreciate it, man. Hello to all the people watching in the future. Like I said, thanks again for having me. This is really exciting. This is my first time getting invited to do a reading like this, so really happy to do it. I have 3 poems I want to read. 2 of them are pretty short, and 1 is not short at all. It is a sonic crown, so it'll take up the bulk of the time. I'm really into form, so I just had to throw some form in there because I'm a poet. That's what we do. The first poem is titled Golds, as in the gold fronts that some folks might wear. Golds. Praise the sun-bright grins of my gaudy skin folk, and the mouths unwilling to keep all that shine hidden behind plump lips. O sanctuary of black gums and bull's foul tongue, holy be your slow rot and smoke stains haloed in soft metal. Each tooth-crowned king of some spit-slick nation, monarchy of molars, empire of incisors, bone blades cloaked in hallelujah and light, bless your gilded bite, a pain I yearn to know. This next poem is called Acts. I've been thinking about language and the language of my people, how we speak, and just how we embody a certain way of moving through the world and what that looks like, and the different sounds, the sonics of that. So this is sort of an example of what I've been thinking about. This poem is called Acts. Oh, sweet chocolate children, born of sun spray and menthol smoke, give me your axe as well as your ask. Give me however your tongue flicks air into meaning. Give me how the hell you talk and sing and sing and sing your every utterance, my favorite tune. And this next poem, like I said, is a sonic crown. For those who are unfamiliar, which I'm sure there's somebody who doesn't know what a crown is. It's a series of 7 sonnets. Each sonnet ends in a particular line. The sonnet that follows that sonnet begins with the line that's a sonnet before it ends with the final sonnet ending with the first line of the first sonnet. And you can break rules. This is my version of it, but here's that. And also this poem, for whatever reason, includes a bit of singing. So just throwing that out there. The poem is titled Golden Hour. The city smolders, golden hour wraps its limbs round every corner. High-hung glass and steel ricochet light like bullets. Pedestrians catching strays to the face. Beautiful carnage. Bless this daily occurrence. The sun making disco balls of skyscrapers. From the roof of one such glittering tower, I note the random anointments of sparkle, planted like kisses on anything not bound in shadow. Nature's Midas touch. Beaming, I name each one holy. It is summer, the dog days, every breeze thick and aching. Below, boys' ball, shirts versus skins, a seemingly harmless categorization. I palm my chest, feel a lifetime's weight of acquiescence to hunger's siren call, recall my high school nicknames while I watch nimble mountains pick and roll. The game ends and all remaining shirts are shirked. Sweat floods valleys carved round peaks of hard-earned mass. These are men, and my eyes are green. My eyes are green, 'cause I eat a lot of vegetables. Wafts out the open window of a maroon marauder. It's 24 sparkling under a red light. From my hoopty, I bop, loud singing along, 'cause I too done lied to and on myself. I notice bruh's lack of snapping and head bopping, despite Erica and her band bending the air, and I wonder why he'd choose stoicism when there's all this good wind to lean into. I'd wager my left patella that when no one's looking, bruh breaks it down, becomes one of Beyonce's background dancers in his bedroom. But at this moonlit intersection, despite our vehicles being the sole burdens on this patch of asphalt, the expectation of masculinity takes the shape of a crowd, every eye tuned to bruh's hips, waiting for a whisper of softness, permission to rocket their rotting tomatoes at his fresh white tea and joy-smeared face, a welcome he won't extend, a choice I can't judge. I'd grow old naming all the ghosts of colored boys who gave in to the urge to move in front of an audience who yearns to paint them red. When faced with an audience who yearns to paint you red, here are a few acceptable words to carry on the tongue. Yes, sir, no, sir, and thank you, sir. This excerpt of The Talk was one I cleaved to like gospel until Philando Castile died following the rules. 6 years he been gone, and I am still languaging my way through the afterbirth of manslaughter, seeking a soft place to land, a shadow in which to weep undisturbed by the anthems of naysayers. All I got to show for this pilgrimage is these poems, bridges constructed of lyric and tangible light, stretching from my mouth all the way to a summer somewhere on the other side of these crimson Julys. Every line an invitation for our stolen beloveds to trek to my tongue and twist it till I tout a testimony which swaps my woes with war cries, makes pistols of the pistols I paint in pantoums pointed at all opposing liberation. This is not a romanticization of spilled blood, but a foreshadowing of when the only acceptable means of repayment will be sanguine rivers running wide and long as those we've been made to birth. We've been running, been made to birth rivers as long as America been a thirsty mouth, a 90-pound toddler refusing to be weaned, little bastard nipple shredder, mostly maiming mamas who don't share their eyes. We are the blood in the milk. All us unborns and gone too soons and still here despite the bullseyes tatted on our faces as newborns. Oh, Hunter, how do you see a field of bucks instead of a field of boys? What marred your vision and made us look so killable? Oh, pray, remember, we too have teeth. We are long due a feast of our own. Warm the cast iron, perfume your house with crisping pig flesh, peppered with fresh cracked blue walls, closed mouths made to chorus under pressure, sweet music of undoing. Dance in your kitchen to the death rattles, assemble a soul train line and slide to the sizzle singing in the skillet, secure in knowing our boys will no longer be made history lessons or hashtags by those sworn to serve. Full-bellied and comfy on our porches, we'll watch our boys frolic in the meadow of their youth, laughter replacing the rifle's echo. Once laughter replaces rifle echoes in our ghetto meadows, our boys might live to learn to love the scent of hydrangea, lilac, marigolds, and aster. Flower boys who grow into men who sow seed, perpetuating softness, unembarrassed by their periwinkle petals. These brave boys won't bother tucking their wants into a poem, won't set their notebooks ablaze, dismissing the idea of their wildest dreams like I do. No, they will dance in the moonlight until their night blue skin drips salt diamonds into their eyes, even when there's no beat thundering from a trunk. Silent streets have their own music. Peep the absence of screaming mamas. Listen to the asphalt lying dormant, not singing a new scarlet carol. How could you not shake some ass to all that quiet in praise of that tomorrow? I ignore the matchbook's lust to make ash of my aspirations. For once, I don't scorch the earth with my backsliding. I let the grass grow. I thumb this poem into the soil and do the electric slide until gems leak from my pores, wetting the ground with glitter, golding this burial ground to become a birthing place. In lieu of a burial ground, I teach my son to make his hands a birthing place. May his now tiny fists grow to know no face to call home. May dapping up his homies be the only tyranny his knuckles knock into this world. That is, of course, unless a motherfucker begs for their bell to be rung, needs to have the lights knocked out across their entire country because their native tongue is one that speaks of my sons as a dead one. I come from a place where no one flashes a fist unless they intend to throw the thing. And so I tell him how many blocks we chase them boys to make good on our promises. And I am hoping that by this he knows I mean violence is a commitment that will make you run until your lungs ache and then keep going. By which I really mean one who commits to violence will always be running. And my boy has 2 dogs whom he loves to trick into chasing him. So I know he knows a useful dummy will chase after whatever it feels is going too fast, instinctively baring its teeth, even when it knows you're perfectly harmless. It is perfectly harmless to practice baring your teeth in the mirror, but there is no point in exercising the muscles of a manhood that should have long ago been committed to the rafters of some gilded arena right before that building was razed to ash and hazy memory. The sun's incessant rising says there's still time to retire by fire the beasts in our reflections, making room for the boy who's been standing there the whole time, waiting for his chance to smile in this hard knock life, this no-knock life, this broken mirror. It's the percussive danger that makes us harden. We so calloused, so criminalized, so crybabied, so convinced we must screw our faces into fables to resemble man. But consider the sun. Consider our sons. They both deserve more than a good story and should have a world worth their light, a world with a warm welcome for all manner of kings. Come, torch in hand, let our flames lick away the old ways. Let's make this morning worth the miracle of its existence as the city smolders, golden hour wrapping its limbs round every corner. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Good God, Ralph, that's amazing. Is that piece out anywhere yet?
No, none of all of these pieces are new to the world.
I didn't think I recognized any. My God, that Sonic crown is amazing.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's I'm a big fan of form. I would never call myself a formalist, but I love the idea of the sandbox and just having the rules, and it makes play feel more satisfying to me. I don't know. I'm really into it, so I really appreciate that. Thank you, man.
No, I mean, I like publishers. If you are watching this, he's on Twitter. Track him down. Get this man a book contract. My God, that was that's good stuff. And Emma, I feel like we should probably, the show is brief. Sometime we got to go get some coffee or beer and sit down and talk for longer, because I don't bring it up often on the show, but I'm a dad too, and we're adoptive parents. Like, I'm obviously a white boy, but my kids are Black, and having the talk when you're in a transracial family is like a whole other thing. So I love the way your poem gets into the talk, and but also the way violence is a commitment. You know, like if this is the route it's going, well, there's also a code of honor involved. So there's a lot going on in that poem. It captures, it crosses a lot of territory. That's stuff.
It
What's that?
It's a little busy, but yeah, I appreciate it, man.
I mean, it's a sonic crown. Right? It can be busy, and actually, it's really interesting that Diane Seuss is on this season also, because we got talking in that episode about sonnets. You know, she's got her book Frank Sonnets, where she uses the sonnet as a to cover basically her whole memoir, her whole story, and the role of like death in her family and things like that. Anyways, we got talking about how using the constraint of a form kind of forces you to, by trying to force it to check boxes, to stick with the metaphor, that then the brain can go other places, right? So like the sonnet you think is going to be this tight piece because it's only 14 lines, but then they end up wandering. It's sort of in the nature of the form. Like you start here, but you have to have that turn, and that can lead you any number of places, right? So I wouldn't say that poem was all over the place. I would say it does exactly what a sonnet is supposed to do. That's really cool. I'm supposed to ask formal or actual questions, official questions. Let me turn this into an official question. So you read us 3 pieces, kind of quite different in form or in structure. So how do you, when you jump into a piece, I'm gonna make this a 2-for-1 so I can sneak in 3 questions. The show's only supposed to have 2, so I'm gonna sneak in 3. When you are jumping in on a piece, how or when do you realize or decide that it has to have a form? Do you put form first, like I'm going to write X style of poem and then see what you can do? Or does your early draft just kind of like, here's what I'm doing, and then it morphs into a form? That's 1A. That's question 1A. So tackle that first.
But more often than not, I find myself having no idea how the thing is going to go, and so I just sit down and write, and just sort of I've gotten into this habit. And there's a writer, Jason B. Crawford. We were having a conversation months ago, and they just said that when they're writing, they often start out in prose blocks and then worry about lineation later on and figure out. And I don't know why it seems so simple, but it blew my mind. So I'm like, it sort of unlocked this thing of like, if I don't have to worry about the structure, at least immediately, I can just get something out, and then you kind of figure out how to move around the pieces for what you're feeling sonically. I also read my poems aloud constantly as I'm writing them. So the poems that end up in form often wind up just feeling like they have this sort of structure, and I just kind of I fall into it. But more often than not, I'm starting out from this prose area just so I can get some language out on the page, and then once I kind of get far enough where I see something happening, I'll start thinking about like how should it present itself, and I try not to like force form on myself because that seems weird. I guess I don't want to have to constrain myself in that way. But I really dig it, so I kind of find myself often trying form while I'm trying to figure out how a poem works, because I am just interested in what form can do for poems. And so if it sticks, it sticks, and if not, I just blow the whole thing up and try again. So I hope that answers.
Oh, totally. That's a great answer. And it actually leads nicely. So 1B, again, I'm sneaking in some extra questions. I mentioned at the top of the show that you're also is working writer what you call guys like us? Like you have a day job and then you kind of fit the writing in where you can. I feel like somebody who there's like 5 writers who actually make a living off their writing. So, Stephen King or whoever could sit down and say like, I am going to embark upon X project, and then has time to do that. But you're a chef, you're working the kitchen. A lot of the time, I would assume everybody I know who works in the restaurant business, it's not only time consuming, but kind of like time all encompassing. So where do you then piggyback off where we left off in the last one? So when and how do you make the time to take that prose block, that kind of cool sonic draft? Because I'm not surprised you read your work a lot, because like the sonics, the sounds of it are really cool and jump out, especially when you read it out loud like that. So like when do you revise? Because that's my question. Like I know it's capturing first drafts you can kind of do, coming home from work or first thing in the morning when nobody else is up yet. Like when do you find time to then turn it into something so complex and cool like that sonic crown?
I'm a slow writer, so as I give myself a lot of time, and I like to have a lot of things to work on. So it takes away a lot of the pressure of like when I might get back to something because I know I'll have an idea. Yesterday is a great example. I had this idea for a poem. I write out enough to where I call it leaving myself breadcrumbs to where whenever I come back to this thing, I can pick up kind of where I left off, kind of get back to that place. And so whenever the time comes, I'm open to it. And so there will be times where I have to spend a week, 2 weeks away from a new thing I'm working on, just because life is life, and that's what it is. So for me, it's I don't I don't know. I'm pretty free about it. I'm lucky that I guess I I'm able to take my work with me most places. Like I work a lot through word processing on my computer, so it's on my phone. So if I have downtime at work, I can sit there and it's not as intuitive or as you know big and broad in the face as it is on the computer screen, but it's still useful. And I just squeeze those moments in those times. But also as a chef, we often have notebooks on our person for writing down various notes and stuff like that. So even I maybe shouldn't be saying this, but even while I am at work, if I am thinking about a poem and I have the time, I will sit there and write it and revise in my mind, but based off what I remember of the poem or write down the new idea. So it's any time, honestly. I try to not get bogged down by the win and just be open to the any of it all, honestly.
And that's a fantastic answer. It's like a discipline that I feel like more of us should practice. Like it sounds like it might come kind of naturally to you, but like I tend to be impatient. Like I love that notion of just knowing that it'll be there, that
The worst thing that could happen is my computer crashes, and then whatever, but it's in the cloud or something. It's I'll figure it out. I'll work it out. But mostly it's just, yeah, I know that there will come a time where I can sit there with that poem and really do something. So I just spend a lot of time. I think about like rappers like Jay-Z who just don't write. He goes into the studio and just spits bars and then wins Grammys and stuff. It just works for him. But there's a lot of thinking happening prior to getting and stepping in front of the microphone. So there's just a lot of times where I'm thinking about the poems that I'm writing. Why is this poem in my mind? What is this language I'm trying to do? What is the poem that inspired it? It's always with you. So in my mind, the revising process becomes finalized on the paper. You're writing it out on the paper on the screen, but you're constantly revising. If you're thinking about the work, it's changing, it's growing in you before you ever put it down on the page anyway. So it lets me feel more open about when I have the opportunity to fully sit down. I've already done some work on my own time.
yeah. I feel like that's a key, right? For people that kind of, well, I keep saying for people, even Stephen King probably feels like he needs to steal time for writing. So I mean, I shouldn't kind of silo writers into different kinds. Like we all have to steal time for writing because daily life is nuts, no matter who you are. So I feel like that's something that we need to remind ourselves. It's just the thinking about it is writing. Like a lot of my first drafts are in voice notes while commuting. I have to drive. I'm on the road for 45 minutes to an hour every day. Like that's, if you can turn that into writing time, then you're getting somewhere, right? So I send myself a lot of voice notes. That is writing.
So yeah, that driving time, those voice notes are a good one. Just thinking out loud, talking to yourself. Whatever little time you have is still effective if it's still working toward the goal. I think Toni Morrison said something about like writer's block and how it's like if you're always doing something for the thing, you're not ever really blocked. You might not be able to do this aspect of your project, but you're still mindfully moving through the space that you're required to for your results.
And if it's good enough for Toni Morrison, it's good enough for me, right?
We're fine. Yep, we're good.
We're gonna make it. Okay, I'm gonna sneak in another bonus question because you mentioned Jay-Z, and before I entered the Zoom, we're recording this to give you a sense of time, viewers. We're recording this shortly after the De La Soul catalog finally was opened up for streaming. So it's been a bit of a holiday for those of us who are old De La Soul fans. So quick side question. Ralph, which De La album are you most excited to have access to again?
I can't say I'm not gotten to like listen to do a deep dive into their albums to know them that much. It's just exciting to have access to the music in general. I don't. I know it's probably like a half answer, but yeah, I don't know the discography because I wasn't really into them as a young dude. It was more as I got older and learned about the fact that you couldn't find their music streaming anywhere was I kind of got into it. And just looking at old concert footage and stuff like that, that really showed me it's like, oh, I was missing out on the thing, and now I just don't have any access to it at all. Like, but so that was kind of refreshing to see that on Twitter the other day. It's like it's now you can enjoy what people knew all those years ago now once again. That's really dope.
I probably showed my age in asking the question in the first place, right? Like, I was middle school, high school. I don't remember how. I was somewhere in that range when 3 Feet High and Rising came out, and I was like instant mega fan. But I never owned like De La Soul is Dead or Balloon Mind State. So like those middle albums were just, I heard them, like in college or whatever, but I never like got entrenched in them. So it's as an older guy, it's been a lot of fun having like, oh, I could just loop De La Soul is Dead for the next 3 hours and really get to know the album, and man, it's great. Okay, here's the official non-writing question that you were going to get. You mentioned Jay-Z, and that just, I don't know, my mind has been spinning De La. I got a chef on the show. I got to ask a food question. So time and money, you got all the time in the world, all the money in the world, no pressures whatsoever. What meal are you going to make? What's your favorite meal to make if you have time and money or no objects?
My favorite thing to make, my favorite meal. So if I'm serving other people, I really enjoy vegetable heavy meals. I'm really into like the family style, or just I love side dishes. So it would probably be a lot vegetable heavy. But if I had to be very specific, I'm sort of in this risotto phase. So it'd probably be some sort of mushroom risotto with like maybe a lobster claw like situation going on, like just preserve the meat, a poached lobster claw. There's a way you can make it to where you preserve the shape and size of the meat and actually poach the meat in the butter itself for the cooking process, as opposed to like eating it with butter while you're at the table. And it's a whole different thing. And it's a really simple thing to get this bowl of rice with a piece of meat on top, but the flavor development that you can have with such simple things is like really dope. So yeah, a really nice risotto with actual arboreal rice, no cream, no cheating, just broth and butter, and butter poached lobster claw or tail on top of it. Maybe like a charred lemon so you can squeeze on top of it.
I had no idea where we were going to go when I asked that question, and now that's the only thing I want to eat now. That sounds amazing. We got to make this happen. I have to have this dish at some point now.
Yeah, it sounds good. I made myself hungry.
Yeah, it sounds good. I like actually cooking the lobster, but yeah, I'm in. Whenever you put this together, you let me know, and I'll get there. All right. Hey man, thank you again so much for taking the time to be on Wednesday night sessions.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm not joking. If you are watching this and you run a press or a lit mag, get Ralph. Reach out to Ralph. This man needs to get his work. His work needs more eyes on it. We need to get him out there more. One of my favorites without a book. So reach out. All right, Ralph. One more time. Thank you for being here, viewers. Thank you for taking the time. And Ralph, hope to run into you down the road sometime.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.